It's time to take a look at what light novels were most popular in Japan for the past week. Hello everybody and welcome to the weekly countdown of the top 10 best-selling light novels in Japan. I'm Justice R. Stone, and on this channel I cover all things light novels, countdowns like this, plus news and reviews, and the Light Novel Podcast. This is one of the places that gets posted as well. So if you love light novels or you're just starting to get interested in them, you should consider subscribing. Now, this video is going to count down the top 10 best-selling light novels in Japan for the dates of August 27th to September 2nd of 2018. 4 new titles on the list this week, so not a big change up from last week, but we do have a new number 1. But I'm gonna warn you ahead of time, it was actually on the list last week, but wasn't number 1. This is the second time this has happened, so yeah, clearly they're just the way the dates are falling in terms of when these books get released. They're just not getting a ton of days of sales, and so they get in there and then they ramp up once they're given a full week of a go at it. So without further ado, let's get to the list. At number 10, with 4,775 copies sold, Volume 16 of Toaru Ossan no VRMMO Katsudouki, or A Certain Middle-Aged Man's VRMMO Activity Log. This one on the list last week, about a male and a middle-aged man who basically, well, now that VRMMOs are a thing, decides that he's basically going to have a second life, a virtual life, and that he doesn't really care about getting the big skills that are going to make him a hero and make him famous and all this kind of crap. He just wants to chill and live, right? So he takes all the fun, just kind of side type skills that nobody else grabs onto first. Now, one of the things that was kind of interesting that came out of the discussion last week, I had talked a little bit about a review I saw, because the description in this makes it sound like he picks all these skills that nobody wants. And one of the reviewers on my anime list was kind of like, well, yeah, people would pick cooking, especially once they realize that you can actually taste the food in the VRMMO. And yeah, archery might be hard, but people love to grind. Like, that's dumb that nobody would do it just because it's hard. And I sort of mentioned that just because, you know, I like putting out whatever information I can about these titles. And so one of you mentioned that it isn't necessarily that he's the only one, it's just that he is an early adopter of these things, because most of the people who join the game want to rank up really fast, want to become super powerful, and so they go for the skills that will make them strongest fastest. So it's not that they're skills that nobody wants, it's just they're not popular, particularly at the start of the game. And really, it sounds like this is just a tale about how he goes through this game with these skills, and how these skills that most people thought weren't, you know, hype enough to use at the beginning, how he ends up making them super useful as he goes along. Sounds like kind of a chill series to me. If you have any more information on it, or some thoughts on it, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. At number 9, with 4,784 copies sold, the Kadokawa Bunko version of Mirai no Mirai. So this one has been on the list for weeks and weeks and weeks. I don't think there's really anything to say much more about it. Yes, it is licensed in English. Yes, it's coming October 30th from Yen on. It will be a hardcover release, and it is only being titled Mirai, a story about a young boy who meets his baby sister, but she's from the future and is now like a teenager, and they go on adventures. It's a movie. This is the adaptation, and it seems super popular, so I'm kind of looking forward to checking it out. We'll be getting the film as well around that same time, the end of October, early November, so you can check out both if you wish, or one or the other, whichever you prefer. At number 8, with 4,808 copies sold, volume number 7 of Psych Kyo Mihashi no Inton Keikaku, or The Greatest Magicmaster's Retirement Plan. There is no English license for this series. Hundreds of years ago, demons appeared suddenly and started attacking humans. At the time, humans couldn't even put a scratch on them with normal weapons. The humans built 7 countries to prevent their race from being extinct, and succeeded in hindering the demons by diverting their magic technology to the military. But the battle against the demons still continues. Our protagonist, Alusu Reigin, who was always fighting at the front lines, has offered to retire at the young age of 16. But the country cannot let him go, as he stands at the top of all magicians and the #1 single digit. Thus, our story begins. Now, this has been on the list before. I believe Volume 6, obviously enough, was on the list before. And if I recall, one of you said that his retirement plan basically was him coming up with a plan to destroy and wipe out the demons, because if the demons were gone, there would be no need for him to fight anymore. So when it's talking about the retirement plan, it isn't like, you know, I'm going to be lazy and not do anything and let humanity, I don't know, get wiped out. It was actually about him creating this plan to save humanity and vanquish the demons and therefore be able to retire, since they won't let him retire otherwise. I think that is what one of you said. If I'm wrong, feel free to point out in the comments. I should have really added that to my notes on this series, but, well, I didn't, unfortunately. But I'm pretty sure that is what somebody said, because I was like, what's the retirement plan? I don't get it. So, in any case, let me know in the comments down below. At number 7, with 5,502 copies sold, volume number 2 of a massive title that I'm going to butcher all the heck, Shin no Nakama Janai Toyosha no Party wo Oidasareta no De, Henkyou da Slow Life Suru Koto ni Shimashita. Wow. You know, I'm sorry if I offend people when I'm trying to say these titles, but I really am just, you know, trying to practice. I am better now than I was, believe it or not, a year ago, even though it's still painful to hear me say some of this stuff. AKA, I was kicked out of the hero's party because I wasn't a true companion, so I decided to have a slow life at the frontier. I'm glad when the English titles are just as long and as the Japanese ones. There's no English license for this series. In a fantasy world in which a young girl with the divine protection of the hero battles against the demon lord, in that world, Red, the elder brother of that young girl hero, possessing the divine protection of the guide, which only grants a high initial level, fought in the initial party of the hero. However, with a divine protection that only grants a high level but no magic nor martial art nor supernatural ability, he gradually could no longer keep up with the battle, and in the end, a companion, a sage, remarked, "You are not a true companion," as he snatched all his equipment and kicked him out of the party with just a single copper sword. Wow, what a jerk. Having his heart completely shattered, Red distanced himself from the battle against the Demon Lord's army, despite knowing that the fate of the world rests on it, aiming to live an inconspicuous life alone at the frontier Zoltan, as he earns money to open a herbalist shop by utilizing the knowledge he acquired throughout his journey. Together with the half-elf carpenter living downtown and the princess who couldn't become the hero's companion, he aims to live a slow life in the frontier of the world governed by a person's inborn divine protection. So, a fantasy about someone who has divine protection that's not good enough to be part of the hero's party that's fighting a demon lord, so he goes and chills. I can't help but think that this is going to be one of those things where his divine protection will somehow secretly be revealed to be the most powerful thing in the world. I don't know. It just strikes me whenever they say stuff like, oh, he wasn't strong enough. It just kind of strikes me that that just never seems to be true. But I could be wrong. I mean, you know, maybe he is too weak to fight on the front lines, and it's kind of about him learning to exist and do things that he can support from the back lines. You know, if he wants to be an herbalist, that probably means he makes potions and stuff like that. So maybe it's about that, and there's nothing wrong with that. We all need our potion maker. You don't survive an RPG long without one, wherever you can buy potions. But so maybe that's kind of the idea on this one. I don't know. Only 2 volumes out, so I don't think there's a ton of information. I was actually pretty amazed that I was able to find that description, to be honest. At number 6, with 6,634 copies sold, volume number 4 of Kaifuku Jutsushi Yarinaoshi Sokushi Mahou to Skill Copy no Chouetsu Heal. Another title for me to butcher. This one in English, The Redo of a Healing Magician, Transcendental Healing of Instant Death Magic and Skill Copying. There's no English license for this one. Of note, this one was actually number 1 in Bookwalker's survey for the next big light novel poll for 2018. Using healing magic on the world itself, I'll start over. Healing magicians cannot fight alone. Keare, who was bound by this common knowledge, was exploited again and again by others. But one day, he noticed what lay beyond healing magic, and was convinced that a healing magician was the strongest class. However, by the time he realized that potential, he was deprived of everything. Thus, he used healing magic on the world itself to go back 4 years, deciding to redo everything. This is a heroic tale of one healing magician who became the strongest by using knowledge from his past life and healing magic. Now this sounds good, except for apparently it's a massive revenge tale. There's not a lot heroic about this story, or at least not that people are aware of so far. Like, we're talking rape and torture, and yeah, this guy apparently is pretty hardcore in getting back at all of the people and institutions that he felt, you know, belittled him and took advantage of him and stripped him of his dignity, etc., etc. Yeah, like, apparently that's pretty brutal from what people tell me. So I'm a little surprised when it's like this heroic tale, but I don't know, like, is there something more to it? I mean, number 1, like, most promising newer light novel title, like, it just, I don't know. But yeah, like I said, this definitely, if this ever comes out in English, this is probably going to be one of those titles that is not going to be for everybody. If you know more about it, I'd love to hear about it in the comments down below. At number 5, with 6,849 copies sold, Volume 19 of Date Alive. This one, no English license for the light novels. 22-episode anime series, which covered volumes 1 to 7, plus there were a couple of OVAs. It was licensed, the anime, in English by Funimation. This one, of course, the story about a boy who is basically encouraged to make these girls fall in love with him because these girls are these kind of entities that, if they don't fall in love with him, will basically just rampage and destroy the world. That's kind of the gist you get. It's, you know, yeah, okay. I know it's got a huge fandom. I talked a little bit last week about how I know there's a lot of people who put this basically on 7C's recommendation list every single time. I pretty much kind of thought it was impossible because this is a Fantasia Bunko title, but we're starting to get some of that. That's kind of, the walls are breaking down around Fujimi Shobo's Fantasia Bunko line, so maybe there's some hope down the road, but, well, keep on requesting, my friends, keep on asking. At number 4, with 7,484 copies sold, volume number 14 of Hache Nante Sore wa Nai Desho. There's no English license for this series. This one was on the list last week about a 25-year-old office worker who, when he falls asleep, awakens and finds that he now occupies the body of a 6-year-old boy who is part of a rather poor sort of country noble family, and while he lacks skills that would allow him to succeed even in administration, he does have magic, but which is sort of a very big deal, except that the magic seems to cause him no end of problems. I believe some of you were saying last week that that kind of revolves around the idea that people keep trying to use him and manipulate him, and you know, all this kind of stuff goes on. So it just kind of makes his life pretty hard and miserable, and well, it's just him trying to make his way in this world now that it is the way that it is. I'm not too sure about this one. Like, I mean, it's an isekai, obviously, but you know, usually isekais, there's some grand scheme, like some big quest, or you're just, you know, going about your business, but you're super OP or whatever the case may be. I don't know, kind of a downer to start off with that kind of history, but, well, I don't know. 14 volumes, though. I mean, it's obviously pretty popular. I'd love to hear more about it if any of you want to share some more. Like I said, I know a few of you shared little tidbits here and there last week, but I'd be interested in hearing more if you have anything to share about that series. At number 3, with 8,056 copies sold, Volume 26 of Mahoka Koko no Retose. So, of course, the irregular at Magic High School. This one on the list for several weeks now. Not really surprising. The way this series seems to work is it'll be on the list until, like, it'll drop off the list for, like, 3 weeks, and then the next volume will be right back on the list again. In any case, this one, really popular series about a brother and sister attending a magic high school and all the sort of politics and hijinks and all sorts of stuff that they get involved in. I shouldn't say, like, hijinks makes it sound like it's comedic, but I watched the anime of this one, and there wasn't a whole lot of ha-ha in the anime, I gotta be honest. It really was took the material pretty seriously. Now, this one is available in English from Yen on. They're going to be releasing Volume 9 this month, on the 18th of September. And of course, you can stream the anime on Crunchyroll. It is 26 episodes long and covered volumes 1 to 7, although it did omit material from volume number 5. So you can get your fix. Also, the manga for, now what's that one? It's the Honor Student at Magic High School. The manga is also licensed by Yen Press and being released. So you can kind of get this story in all of its forms currently in English. We're just behind by, 18 volumes. At number 2, with 8,553 copies sold, Volume 11 of Seirei Gentsuki. This one we are getting released in English under the title of Seirei Gentsuki Spirit Chronicles. This is licensed for English release by J Novel Club. They just released the first volume August 28th. I do have a copy. I'm hoping to review that in the next couple weeks. Meet Ryo, a callous, orphaned boy living in the slums. At only 7 years old, he realizes he's actually the reincarnation of Haruto Amakawa, a Japanese university student with a tragic past. While still reeling from this shocking epiphany, Ryo also comes to learn that he possesses extremely potent magical abilities and uses his new powers to solve the kidnapping case of a little girl. His good deed is acknowledged, and he's rewarded by being enrolled into a prestigious academy for noble children. That's the description from J Novel Club. The other descriptions that I have read before this was licensed made it sound a lot more like Ryo and Haruto, that they almost commingled in a way, that it wasn't just a pure reincarnation type story. And also Ryo's got enough of a tragic past too. Apparently his mother's been murdered and stuff like that, and that a lot of this story also has to do with sort of the conflict of the classes, because of course Ryo is this poor child from the slums who then is enrolled in this school for nobles because of his deed, and so there's kind of that class warfare, but there's kind of that whole prejudice and everything else that he has to overcome. And so It sounds like it's a little bit of a more serious type series. Like I said, I do want to check out the first volume. I do have a copy of it, so I will be reviewing it on the channel. But so no spoilers, please, because like I said, I'll be reading it. But your thoughts a little bit on Seirei Gensuke. Finally, at number 1, with 14,181 copies sold, volume 29 of Hidan no Aria. Aria the Scarlet Ammo. Like I said, it was on the list last week. I think, like a couple places up. This one, of course, about a boy with an ability that gets activated under certain circumstances. I said that I was thinking and maybe hoping that it had to do with, you know, adrenaline or like the high stakes or, you know, if he's in danger. Nope. Apparently it activates for the first time when he catches a glimpse of Aria's panties. Light novels. You're so painfully predictable sometimes. Anyway, it's about students at an academy that trains armed detectives. So I don't know what this series is really like. Is it an action series? Is it more of like an actual detective series? Is it kind of a hybrid of the two? I've never watched the anime, and as I've mentioned before, the light novels were licensed in English, but only 2 volumes were ever released, and then the licensed has just seemed to have existed in a, I don't know, state of limbo ever since. So I don't know if we're ever going to see this one, any more of it in English, and I don't even know how decent those first 2 volumes were in terms of their English release anyway. So sorry guys if you want to see this one, but I think it's kind of stuck in licensing hell for at least a couple of more years. This week I want to say a special thanks to Mokina, Mike B, Ola OJ the Bull, and Renzaz, and all the rest of my patrons over on Patreon for their continued support that allows me to buy books for this channel and to pay for the hosting of the Light Novel Podcast. I'm just really, really thankful for your support and very much appreciate it. So those are your top 10 best-selling light novels in Japan for the week of August the 27th to September 2nd of 2018. Let's see what the list is like next week. I mean, at least there's a couple of titles on the list between last week and this week. Titles that we don't have in English, which I always kind of look forward to seeing those kind of titles that we don't hear about a lot. Ones that aren't super popular. And then, of course, on this week, we had one that's only a volume 2, which I really enjoy those weeks too, where we get sort of the newer volumes and new stuff to see what's kind of coming out and what's going on in Japan. I noticed some of the newer stuff, the volumes 1s and 2s that we're getting, a lot of them aren't isekais anymore, that it seems to be more of like a pure fantasy or that kind of stuff. So it'll be interesting to see, like over the next year or so, to see what kind of new books come out onto the list and what kind of material they are having, because I know a lot of English fans are kind of like, oh, there's a lot of isekai. But on the flip side though, isekai apparently are very popular in terms of sales. So it's just interesting to see where Japan is, because they're a couple of years ahead of us in terms of the whole curve with this stuff. So I always look forward to seeing those new titles. Maybe we'll see a couple in the next coming weeks. So if you're brand new to the channel and you love light novels, or you're just getting into them, you should subscribe. I do this countdown every week, as well as 2 to 3 reviews, news, and the Light Novel Podcast gets posted here too. Thank you so much for joining me in this video. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Till then, bye-bye for now.